So throughout this process, I've used different digital technologies that have been absolutely essential to my to each stage of this process. So when I was researching, originally I used Google, WordPress, IMDb, Word, sticky notes, and there was an app on my phone that I could write notes on, and YouTube. Um, all of these things were used to research ideology, different types of camera angles, different types of lighting, and all the findings everything I found, or every idea that I got, I would either, if I was on the computer, then I would write it onto a Word document, and then I would upload that document to WordPress so that everyone could see it. Um, but if I was out and about and an idea just suddenly came into my head, then the phone app was absolutely incredible in terms of retaining that information, or in terms of keeping that tiny idea, so I could either write it onto a Word document later on, or actually write it down in hand later on. A good example of that is actually the name of Hive. Where I actually got that name, I was in a trip in Sri Lanka, and they have a company there called Rhino, Project Rhino, which is same way. It's capital letters with a dot in between each letter, and this company does bicycles, and they repair bicycles for the locals. But I saw that and I thought, wow, Project Rhino, that sounds like a really cool name. So I came up with an acronym for the machine in Husk, um, which came out as Hive, and that's where I got the idea from that. But as soon as I saw Project Rhino, I wrote down into my phone app, um, Project Rhino, really cool, smiley face. So then I knew that, that would be how it was. In terms of the ideology, where I started with that was I would have conversations with people around me, and then anything they would say. So for example, one person said to me, why do we have to have rules? So I went away and I ended up researching anarchism, and then that led me on to libertarianism, using the magic of Wikipedia and suggestions on the right hand side. Any information I found, I would then linked that to my WordPress and embed that into my WordPress so that anyone could see it, including myself. When I was planning everything, and when I was planning my products, I actually used PowerPoint to construct a very rudimentary storyboard that wasn't drawn. It was I used a camera, which I'm actually using right now to construct this evaluation. I used that camera to take very basic pictures of just another person in my class. So I would get an idea of the mise-en-scene and composition that I wanted to achieve when I would be on location with the real actors. And that is what I use as a storyboard, and I just use the note function again to write notes underneath those images so I knew what was going on. When I did do a fully fleshed out drawn storyboard, I then I used Google to find a template of the storyboard, and so I was constructing my own, so I knew it would be neat. And then I used a printer to print that off, and then I drew it out, and then I used a scanner to put it back onto a computer, and then I uploaded it to WordPress so that anyone could see it. And that was a detailed process that used a lot of technologies that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have done that process without. I wouldn't have been able to take a picture with a camera because it would have lost definition and detail. A scanner was a lot more precise and better in terms of scanning that storyboard onto the internet. During my planning, I would also use iMovie with those images to test how long I wanted each shot to be and how much I wanted that shot to go on with, and I would also use iMovie to test the capabilities and how extreme I could take the editing in terms of slowing down the footage and adding a filter over the top. For the example, one of which was used on Eve's face. And then whenever I found the settings that I liked, I would write that down into a sticky note, which is an app on a Mac computer. And I just noted down what those settings were. So I had one for, I wanted originally it to be yellow, then I wanted it to be blue, then I finally decided on red. But I would be able to quickly, whenever I wanted to change it, I would be able to quickly go to my sticky notes and then change the settings inside of iMovie whenever I wanted to. To test actual camera movements, for example, in the original draft of the Husk trailer, I originally wanted to see one of the people entering the hive and standing up inside of the hive for the first time. And to see how I wanted that shot to work, I asked a friend to duck down for me and then stand up and just look out. So I would use the camera on my phone to get a side shot of that, and then I got an idea of how I wanted the camera to move and how I wanted the character to stand if I was going to do that shot. In the end, for the end of that storyboard, I decided against that shot, and I decided against keeping the creepy atmosphere as to stay away from the very generic sort of Todorov way of looking at constructing your product, whereas there's your equilibrium, disequilibrium, equilibrium, which would have been the case if I had stuck with the original plan. I feel with the trailer now, I have created a trailer that starts in the middle of the disequilibrium. With the construction process, when I was actually manufacturing my products, I used the same camera as what I'm using now to film every shot. I also use Photoshop for when I would use any photos for my poster and magazines. I manufactured those inside of Photoshop, but I wouldn't. The detail that I achieved through Photoshop, I wouldn't have achieved through using any other program. With iMovie, that was where I edited my film, and it was a very simple interface to use. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't too difficult to use. It may have actually given me limitations, which are a good thing when you are playing with these kind of things, because if you have no limitation, then you just keep working on it until it's overdone, and to the extent where it's too manufactured, which is what I felt would have happened if I used any other program. When I was getting the music for this, I actually went to a website called Impotech, which is run by a man called Kevin MacLeod, who writes and distributes royalty-free music. And at the time, during that process, I was actually really struggling to find any music that was fitting with the trailer and the trailer's atmosphere. I downloaded the song from that website and then put it into a program called Soundbooth to cut it down and make it slightly quieter for the film trailer. Any kind of written notes or written documents that I needed to send to myself, I then used email to transport those over. And when I was actually uploading my trailer onto YouTube to evaluate and to show my focus group, I actually emailed that product to my own email address using Hotmail, and then I would come home, and I would get that product off my email, and then I would upload it to YouTube, which couldn't have been done inside of school due to restrictions into the access to that site. So that was extremely important. I would not have been able to complete my coursework if that hadn't have been available to me. In my evaluation, I used Word, this camera, and WordPress. For any kind of written documents, I originally wrote those into Word, because I would have better control over how I want it to look and how I wanted to write it, and spell checking was a lot easier to do. And then after that document was completed, I then just copy and pasted it over to my WordPress account and I uploaded it from there. This camera right now that I'm using, I'm not going to be using any editing software to edit these featurettes. This camera has been used throughout the entire process, and without the use of the camera I probably wouldn't have been able to complete this coursework. And that's how I used technologies throughout all stages of my A2 coursework.